I had the most interesting kind of eavesdropping, but then becoming part of the conversation experience this morning. Um, I want to be really careful here because it was at my local bookseller, so I don't want to reveal any identities. Um, I was just really shocked at how history isn't maybe landing or being taught in a way that's exciting and relevant anymore, because these wonderful people who are staffing the shift today, who are avid readers, did not know about some of the backstory behind some classic authors. And I believe that's somewhat generational, but I also heard some of the reasons why, because I just listened. I offered the little bit that I knew about some of the statements they were making that were assumptions that I thought, oh, that's not actually the history behind that author. I think it would stand just asking if I could, you know, add something to the conversation, which I did, and it was really lovely. But the interesting thing was that by admission of these younger staff people, they go to Google for their history and their backstories, which, as many of us know, has a certain slant, and will call from or gather from a certain limited um, archive of data. And we've kind of gotten used to thinking, some of us, that it includes all data points, but it doesn't. And I found it fascinating that when I shared the history that I've learned through actually reading about these authors, because after reading some of their books, I was fascinated. Who is this person? What times were they living in? How did their culture and particular society inform maybe some of what they wrote as pieces of fiction? What statements were they making, maybe trying to make? What things moved them? What things held heart and meaning for them? And as I shared what I've read, the kids were at the computer Googling to check and see if what I said was true and to find out more information. And I thought, wow, I don't quite know what to do with this, because I'm sitting here and I am by no means the last word or expert on anything. And yet, as a mentor, maybe, in handing over the baton in a way, while still vibrant and vital myself, to this young, interesting generation, I thought, I don't quite know how to keep the conversation going when it goes back to the device. And I work at this for a living. I'm good at this stuff, not just because I'm a therapist, because I have a curious mind. And it just led me to, now here I am on a device about to post it to social platform to get the word out. But here we are. I want to share that if you feel, as an older person, you have something vibrant and vital to continue to contribute, that it is so important to make a foray into a conversation gently and with respect, and to ask, I'm so intrigued, or to say, I'm so intrigued by what you're talking about. May I join? And yet, when you join, to realize that you're not a dispensary of correcting, that you're simply adding to a conversation to round it out, in the hopes that you, as this kind of walking, living little section of a library yourself, can relationally establish connection and share some of the things that you've learned, that you're hearing are maybe gaps. And it was hard for these younger people a little bit because they were like, they know me, so it wasn't untoward what I did, but they were a little, I sensed the mistrust, that I'm not really sure what's happening here. I'm still sorting it out. But anyway, all that to say that if you know something as a person of a certain generation, instead of condemning the kids, maybe we need to find ways to be curiously engaged so that we can say, hey, did you know that this is what informed this particular person to actually write this book? And intriguingly, the assumptions, in a positive way, started to change just a little bit, even though they were Googling to see if what I said was true. Because the authors in question wrote under pseudonyms, and they did that because at that time in their era, it was important for them to protect their identity as well as even get a chance at becoming a published author. And that's something that these young people didn't know. And I said, you might want to look into that because the stories of the people who wrote these books are fascinating in and of themselves. And maybe we wouldn't have so many, I don't know, thinking from a bigger viewfinder, maybe so many stake in the ground otherness conversations if we all kind of studied history a little bit more and got curious about the people who've come before us, because the lives they were creating out of actually provide a backdrop and a context that in some ways is timeless, because some of the same things that they were challenged by are challenges that our era and times are encountering as well. And they maybe didn't figure it all out, but they figured a few things out, and they are mentoring us still today. Anyway, those are just some of my thoughts from the morning. You take good care.